The jet was never meant to fly over forests. It belonged to open skies, to roaring runways and endless horizons. Yet on this strange morning, it sliced low through a vast green wilderness, its silver wings flashing between towering trees. The forest stretched endlessly beneath it, thick and ancient, painted in layers of emerald and shadow. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the canopy, glinting against the jet's polished body as if nature itself were studying the intruder. The pilot, alone in the cockpit, felt something unusual in the air, not turbulence, not mechanical failure, but presence. The radar flickered with static even though the sky was clear. Birds scattered in sudden spirals, and the wind shifted direction without warning. The jet circled lower, engines humming like restrained thunder. Vines hung from colossal branches, and mist curled above the treetops like breath from a sleeping giant. Then the forest moved, not with wind, but with intention. A ripple flowed through the trees as if the earth itself had exhaled. From the heart of the green wilderness, something long and radiant began to rise. Scales shimmered between leaves, catching the light in flashes of gold and jade. The jet steadied, hovering in a tight arc above a clearing that hadn't existed seconds earlier. The trees bent outward, forming a perfect ring. And from that circle, the beautiful snake emerged, enormous, graceful, and impossibly bright. Its body coiled like living silk, patterns glowing along its length like ancient symbols. Its eyes were deep amber, reflecting the jet in miniature, as though measuring it. The forest fell silent, even the wind dared not whisper. The jet's engines roared louder, defiant, mechanical power facing living legend. Metal and myth had finally locked eyes above the green world. The snake lifted its head higher, towering above the tallest trees, its scales reflecting sunlight like fragments of shattered mirrors. It did not hiss, it did not strike, it simply watched. The jet circled once more, faster now, its engines cutting sharp arcs through the heavy forest air. The pilot's hands tightened on the controls as warning signals blinked across the dashboard, systems malfunctioning without explanation. The snake's body began to coil upward, spiraling gracefully into the sky. Leaves and branches were swept aside as if pushed by invisible waves. When it moved like water, fluid and hypnotic. Then, with shocking speed, the snake lunged. The jet rolled sharply, dodging the strike by mere inches. A blast of displaced air shook the trees violently. The forest erupted in chaos, birds screeching, branches snapping, shadows twisting wildly. The jet fired a burst of warning flares that streaked across the sky in blazing orange lines. The flames reflected in the snake's golden eyes, but instead of fear, there was curiosity. The snake twisted midair, weaving through the trails of fire without being burned, its body glowing brighter with each movement. It whipped its tail, sending a shockwave that rattled the jet's frame. The aircraft spiraled downward but recovered just above the canopy, skimming treetops so close that leaves scattered in its wake. The forest floor below cracked open where the snake's massive coils pressed against the earth. Roots tore free, and ancient stones split apart. Yet even in battle, the snake remained breathtaking, a creature of power and beauty combined. The jet climbed sharply again, engines screaming at full force. It launched another flare, then dove directly toward the snake's glowing chest. The collision seemed inevitable, metal against scale, fire against legend, but at the final second, the snake twisted aside and coiled around the jet midair, not crushing it, but holding it suspended above the trembling forest. The world slowed as the snake wrapped its enormous body around the jet. The metal frame groaned under pressure, warning alarms flashing red across the cockpit. The pilot could see nothing but shimmering scales outside the glass canopy. Each scale was etched with patterns that looked older than time, glowing faintly like embers beneath skin. The snake's body radiated warmth, not scorching, but alive, like sunlight captured within flesh. The jet struggled, engines pushing against the coiling grip, sending vibrations through both metal and muscle. Below them, the forest trembled under falling debris and scattered leaves drifting like green snow. The snake lowered its massive head to the cockpit, amber eyes meeting the pilot's gaze. In those eyes was no hatred, only ancient awareness. The jet's roar felt small in comparison to the silent power of the creature. For a moment, neither attacked. The forest seemed to hold its breath again. Then the jet fired its last emergency burst, a thunderous surge of engine power that forced a ring of air outward in a violent shockwave. The snake loosened slightly, scales clashing against metal in a sharp ringing sound. The jet twisted free, spiraling upward with smoke trailing from its wings. The snake recoiled, then shot skyward in pursuit, its body slicing through clouds of mist rising from the forest canopy. The chase became a dance, mechanical precision against organic grace. The jet darted between rising columns of warm air, while the snake looped and curved effortlessly through the sky. Sunlight flashed off silver wings and golden scales alike, turning the battle into a breathtaking spectacle above the endless green sea of trees. The fight reached its peak high above the forest where clouds drifted lazily, unaware of the chaos below. The jet climbed until the air grew thin and sharp, engines straining with a deep metallic growl. The snake followed without effort, its long body cutting through the sky like a ribbon of light. From this height, the forest looked calm again, an innocent blanket of green hiding the scars of battle. The jet suddenly cut its engines to near silence and dropped into a steep dive. Gravity pulled it downward like a falling blade. The snake hesitated for a fraction of a second before plunging after it, coiling tighter as it accelerated. Wind screamed past both of them. The dive grew faster and faster until trees rushed upward in a blur of green and shadow. At the last possible second, the jet reignited its engines and shot forward horizontally just above the canopy. The snake, unable to match the sudden shift, struck the forest floor with earth-shaking force. The impact sent shockwaves rolling across the land. Trees bent and dust exploded into the sky. The jet soared upward again, circling back through the smoke-filled air. But when the dust cleared, the snake rose once more, not wounded, not broken, but glowing brighter than before. Its scales now shimmered with deep emerald light, blending perfectly with the forest around it. The jet hovered at a distance, smoke trailing lightly from one wing. The battle had not destroyed either of them, but something had changed. The snake slowly lowered itself back into the forest, coils disappearing between ancient trees. It did not strike again. It simply vanished into green shadow, as if returning to its throne beneath the earth. The jet remained suspended in the sky for a long moment, engines humming softly now, no longer roaring in defiance. Then it turned away from the forest and climbed toward open sky, leaving behind a place where metal had challenged myth, and survived. The jet did not immediately return to its familiar highways of open sky. Instead, it climbed slowly, as if reconsidering its place in the world. The forest beneath no longer seemed like hostile territory. From high above, the vast canopy shimmered in layered greens and deep shadows, peaceful again, almost innocent. Smoke still trailed faintly from the wounded wing, curling backward like a fading memory. Inside the cockpit, the pilot exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. The warning lights dimmed one by one, systems stabilizing as though the aircraft itself understood the battle had ended. Yet something lingered in the airspace behind him, not danger, but awareness. The radar flickered again, not with static this time, but with a steady pulse, almost rhythmic. He glanced back at the forest, half expecting golden scales to pierce the treetops once more. Nothing moved, only sunlight danced across leaves, and mist rose gently from hidden rivers. But deep within the green expanse, far below roots and stone, the beautiful snake remained awake. It coiled in silence, ancient body wrapped around chambers of earth older than memory. Its amber eyes glowed softly in the darkness, not with anger, but with curiosity fulfilled. The jet had not been prey. It had been a question, a test of balance between two powers never meant to meet. Above, the aircraft leveled out, silver wings steady against the bright horizon. The pilot adjusted his course toward distant mountains, yet he carried something unseen with him, the understanding that not all battles are meant to be won or lost. Some are meant simply to prove existence. And somewhere in the hum of the engines, beneath the mechanical rhythm, there lingered a faint echo, not of fear, but of respect. Days passed, but the encounter refused to fade. Mechanics inspected the jet upon landing, puzzled by strange scoring along its fuselage. The marks were not burns, not scratches from debris, but smooth, curved impressions etched delicately into metal, like patterns pressed by living silk. Engineers debated theories: lightning, experimental interference. None of their explanations satisfied the pilot. He said nothing about the eyes he had looked into, or the warmth that radiated through reinforced glass. Yet at night, when the runway lights shimmered like distant stars, he would run his hand along the side of the aircraft and feel the faintest vibration beneath his palm, as though the forest still resonated inside its frame. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, storms began forming along the edges of that ancient wilderness. Not violent storms, but controlled spirals of wind that circled the treetops without breaking them. Travelers reported glimpses of emerald light weaving through morning fog. Animals grew strangely calm. It was as if the forest had accepted something new into its memory, the presence of metal that did not seek to conquer, but to challenge and withdraw. One dawn, unable to ignore the pull any longer, the pilot guided the repaired jet back toward the green horizon. This time he flew higher, not invading the canopy but tracing its outline like a respectful boundary. The forest answered not with chaos, but with stillness. No clearing opened, no scales rose, only sunlight flashed gently off silver wings. And deep below, the snake rested unmoving, aware but unthreatened. Two forces, once locked in combat, now shared the same sky in silent acknowledgement. The jet turned toward the rising sun, engine steady and strong, no longer seeking dominance. Behind it, the forest breathed in slow, ancient rhythm. Metal had met myth and returned wiser, and somewhere between earth and open sky, an invisible balance had been written into the wind.